Hey guys, and welcome back. It has been a while. We are back on Solo Leveling Rise, and I wanted to talk about in today's video the best teams in the game at the time of the recording. So if you watch this video 6 months from now, check the date, of course, because the information may change. They are constantly releasing new characters, reworking older characters, etc. Meta does shift a good bit. We're gonna mainly pertain to like cookie cutter teams, like full fire, full light. Not really going to get into any hybridizations because that typically would occur more like if Sung Jinwoo is your main character, but this is for the content not pertaining to Sung Jinwoo, where you're not using him, where you're just using these other hunter characters. So I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe. The like goal, if you guys do appreciate the content, want to help support the channel, it's going to be 600 likes. Not very hard, it's free, it takes just a second. Speaking of which, hit that thumbs up and subscribe, because the subscribe button is also free and about 80% of viewers aren't subscribed, and I would greatly appreciate if you guys could do that. It means a ton for me. All right, so I want to get things started really quickly with the best team in the game right now. In my opinion, that is the Fire team, and that should be no surprise, really. I mean, they're the most recent team. They've been working on this team for a good bit here, and finally, in my opinion, just kind of just went overboard. But really, I'm curious to see where they go with Goto next. But imagine he's a Fire character. At what point is too much too much? So what is the best Fire team? It's going to be Essel. For one, she's your best breaker. I mean, if you wanted to, if you needed an alternative breaker for whatever reason, it will be Emma, but it's Essel. Other than that, you definitely want Gina. She is your support character. In fact, she's the only one really here. I don't know if Song is, but she is. So she's your support. Now, if you didn't have her, I would personally probably plug in like Min Byung-gu, probably. If you really wanted to, you could probably plug in Choi and then get his defense down. Like, you could maybe use that. But for the most part, you need Gina. You want Gina. She is your guy, or your character, your lady for that spot. Now, this is where it's tricky, because you got this three-headed monster of DPS characters. So I personally believe Kanai is the best character, right? I personally believe that, but I don't know if it's a huge gap. Yu Hyun is insane. And then I also want to throw some respect to Choi, who, when fully maxed out, A5 weapon, is a really, really good damage dealer. So really what you have here is you have a situation where any of those three characters, but mainly the ladies in my opinion, I think they're just a cut above, but any of these characters can be used in different pieces of content and for different reasons. So like more like shorter content, I personally like using Kanai. Longer content like Workshop, in my opinion, I like to use Yu Hyun a little bit more, but you can use whichever, wherever. It doesn't really matter a ton. And then in terms of like Sung Jinwoo support, we're not really talking about that. That would be something to consider too. I think that she is just a nuke, but the other two do other things as well, like defense down, spotlight if you're Yu Hyun. But I think this is the best team in the game, in my opinion. But it also, again, just depends on, in my opinion, what you're taking on and what your overall composition of your team is. But make no mistake, these two are mandatory for this team, and you absolutely do need to have this weapon on Essel. It's not negotiable. The weapon is insane. And so lastly, when you're building this team, you want to make sure that you put the critical hit rate the highest on the character that's your DPS. Like, you don't want to randomly have Gina having the highest critical hit rate or something like that. That does matter a ton. If you guys haven't already supported somebody else, do make sure that you do support the channel through the link down below in the description. By doing so, I can give you guys all these different things. I have all these, so skill runes, 500 essence stones, mana power selection chests, rune fragments, all this stuff. I've still got like thousands and thousands of these to give away. So click the link in the description, click support, and I'll be able to send these out to you, and it should show up in your gift box. If not, on the website that it takes you to through the link down below in the description, click this button, go to my page, click the supporter tab on my page, and not my page, but literally your page. There's a button that says my page, but your page, not mine. Click the supporter tab and it'll show you the literal code that I sent out. Very easy, very quick. Also, quick little plug, the game that everyone thinks is a meme is actually a real game, and I'm playing it every day on my second channel, D-Free Raid Shadow Legends, or one of my few channels, to be fair. So if you guys are interested in the game, you want to give it a shot, you wanted to see what it's all about, now's the perfect time. It's the anniversary. Link down below in the description. I also need to cook the books for the subscribers so we can get monetized over there. Thank you so much. All right, next up on our list in terms of what I think is the next best team is actually going to be, I think it's fair to say light. I think it's fair to say light. So Light is fun because Light may be the most free-to-play friendly team in the game right now, because one, there's a lot of options, and then two, there's all that Cha stuff going on, and that, like, I don't know what it's called, but that thing where you run through all those different mission requirements to give you the Cha weapons and all that stuff. But you could argue Light. You could honestly, you could argue any other team other than maybe Water. Maybe. Like, you could argue a few teams. All right, so this is where we're at now. So the thing with this is that it's another team that has good optionality. In fact, you've got one great breaker, Go. He is on your team regardless. Sorry, Beck, you don't compare. Go is on the team. He's your breaker. But if you absolutely need a breaker for this team, you don't have Go Gunhee for whatever reason, then you are using Baek Yoonho. And Baek Yoonho does have a little bit of utility. He's one of the few characters in the game that's not Sung Jin-woo or a Shadow that actually can apply a defense down. And I think Choi was the only other one that's in the game. Maybe there's another one, but I believe those are the only two. So there's that. But breaker. So yeah, Go also is a nice utility / support character. You really want to have him if possible. Now you hit a period here where you have two support characters, right? So first thing I'll say is with Min, he's more of a universal support. Shimizu is that new gen where it's like mainly locked to a team. So there's some stuff that's not Light specific, I believe, but she's mainly just only going to be used in a Light team. That's why I mentioned Min as a plug earlier for any of the other teams if you didn't have the effect. What Min does is pretty cool. He actually is able to send out his critical hit bonus. So you want to give him artifacts that have critical hit damage increases whenever you're using him. Now, you don't have to worry so much about that if he's like a Sung Jin-woo support, but when he's a main character, I personally like to abide by that. He also gives out more critical hit rate and damage with that first duplicate. And then his last dupe, which I didn't really talk much about dupes in the fire team, and I'm not going to talk too much in this video just in general, but increases the ultimate skill of the team member with the highest total power by 50%, which you want to make sure that, unlike me right now, that's currently Go, you want to make sure that if you're using this team, you've got that dupe, that it's your Thomas or your Cha, whoever your DPS is. But I really like those buffs. But I don't want to kind of sleep on Shimizu here, because her brilliance is really strong. Increased damage dealt, increased skill rate of the user's base skill and ultimate skill by 8%. That's really good on Thomas. In fact, I feel like she was made specifically for Thomas. In fact, she came out right after him, so probably so. She's really good. She has a few other things here that I really like, but I typically already had Min built, so I typically just gravitate more towards him. But she's really strong. So the correct answer is, there is no correct answer. Whichever one you want. That's what I'll say. Whichever you have more investment in is the one I would go for, and I'd imagine that's probably Min because he's such an old character. But if you've got A5 on Min and you've got A3 on Shimizu, for example, that's what I would probably lean more towards. Now, Thomas versus Cha. For the record, I think Thomas is the better character, right? He's one of the best characters, best DPS in the game, and that's mostly it. However, the fun thing about Cha is that, like I said, she's, for one, super free to play friendly. So there's that. Similarly to the supports, if you got a super stacked Cha for some reason and you don't have a stacked Thomas, well, regardless of who I think is better, I think Cha can get the job done for you, right? Cha is also a fun character because her branding and the way she just spams those skills and how she can nuke down a boss with that ultimate afterwards. I really like her, and I think she's a character that is absolutely worth using. It's almost a 1A 1B situation, but I do think Thomas is just a cut above. But regardless, she's a really nice secondary to have. And again, this team has some amazing options across the board, and I don't think you could go wrong with either. Now, this is where it's really tricky. Do I get dark here? I don't really know. Like I'm trying really hard to combat my bias towards Mireille. Like, I'm trying really hard to combat it. I don't actually know. I'm trying. You know what? I will go dark. And the reason why is Isla. Isla's arguably the best support character in the game. And jiggle physics, right? No, but she's arguably the best support character in the game. Like, but the caveat to that is that, again, with the dupe thing, you need to have her at least A3 to where her bonuses from horoscope, crossing the stars activate regardless. She's got this stupid like fortune teller RNG stuff going on, which I guess thematically makes sense. It makes sense in universe for the character, but it's not great for a game. So the good news is they're aware of that, and with the third duplicate, those skills activate strength, the magician, and wheel of fortune no matter what. So that's going to be horoscope and crossing stars. That's going to be her support skill, right? Crossing stars. She's going to give Jinu all that stuff with a third dupe. all this stuff. Wheel of Fortune, Strength, Magician, and the Star, all of that. So she's insane, right? Increases damage dealt, blah, blah, blah. This is Janu stuff, not really relevant for our video all too much. But with her core attack, she gives her entire team this stuff. Increases the damage, grants a shield equal to 12% of her defense to the team, increases all members' crit hit rate and damage by 12% for 12 seconds. She's really, really strong. And then also, her ultimate's fun because depending on which skill you use last, it does flip. Like if you use Death, it's going to increase the team's ultimate skill damage if there's another dark character on your team. And I haven't really talked a ton about weapons aside from when I mentioned Essel earlier. But the entire team's defense increases, which also increases the damage on certain compositions, or also her cooldown goes down. She's able to use her ultimate pretty reliably, and that's nice because she can kind of just spam it. But on certain compositions, that matters a lot because with Charlotte, she's a DPS, one of the rare ones that scales off of defense. And so the higher her defense is, the more damage she will do. And so as a result, this combination of these three characters on the top row has great synergy as they were designed to do. Now, the only other thing that kind of can be plugged in here, if you're missing a breaker, okay, Lim, okay. Lee Bora is a solid support slash deep secondary DPS character if you really needed to plug that in. But really, it's the top row or Silvermane in for Charlotte. I'm not really going to talk much about Harper. She's a great breaker. Pork Chopped is amazing. With that extra dupe, that fifth dupe again, Pork Chopped goes insane. Pork Chopped is ridiculous. She's crazy with that. And it just makes Harper, or Charlotte, excuse me, go crazy with the damage. But it also can make anybody else, like Silvermane, go crazy too. And Silvermane has a great playstyle. I think that they really patched him. I think he's really, really strong with his damage, his bleed, or the other effect that he has if he's not able to apply the bleed. I like the extra movement and attack power you get from this second skill. He's very, very good, but he does have the innate issue that, like, yeah, he has a shield now, but he does have that innate issue that he's going to constantly, with his weapon, which you want this to happen because it increases his damage, so it's a catch-22, he's going to constantly eat away at his own life, make himself weaker regardless. And so that puts him in a position where he's more likely to get hit and die. And you don't really want his HP to go back up through too much healing or anything like that because he's doing less damage the more HP he has, which is why, again, he nukes his own life. But you don't have to worry about that. You got a very tanky character here because she also is scaling off of defense. And then lastly, her mobility is amazing, right? That like skill that she has to just dash around is really, really awesome. So I forgot I bought this. I very rarely buy these. That's a cute dress. I like the little brooch or whatever. So yeah, with the dark team, I think it's the top three, but I really, really like Silvermane. In fact, prior to getting Charlotte A5, I exclusively used Silvermane. So I have a lot of experience with him. Now, I really, really like the win team. Like I said, I was trying hard to fight my bias. Now, the thing with the win team is unless you really like Dong Su, and you can make a case to use Park Hee-jin in some content, but you don't need to use those characters. You mainly just need to use the top three. So Wu Jinchul is your breaker. He spams his skills. His core attack's fun too. He's going to be breaking. And with that, after this, I'll come back and I'll talk about the shadows you want to use too. And I'll go rapid fire. He's mainly just breaking, so there's that. Her sustainability is really nice. She has the effect where she's able to give the characters like invincibility pretty much, if I remember correctly. Weesh, these are terrible. What the hell was I doing last time I used Win? But she's got that type of skill. But I also really like her weapon. Increases damage taken for the targets hit by Hansemi by 5% for 10 seconds. That's nice. So she is a interesting character to use overall. And again, just overall support characters are really good in this game. So definitely one that you guys would want to use if possible. But again, that's not all she does. A sharp breath effect is granted to the team member when they use their ultimate skill, which Amamiya uses her ultimate and then goes into nuke mode, which we'll talk about her in a second. Applies the below effects every second. Increases crit hit rate by 1%, stacking up to 10. Increases crit damage, stacking up to 10. And charges power gauge. So she's just passively supporting, and then also has the ability to increase your damage by hitting the opponent. Just overall a really, really good character for her survivability and sustainability. And then lastly, like I said, Amamiya really is a glass cannon, so she could really use this. Decreases damage taken by 20%, continuously restores HP equal to 1% of Hansami's max HP for the entire team every 1 second. So she just absolutely needs all the healing she can get. And then there's cleansing in here. Really good character. So DPS of this team is going to be Amamiya. She is a nuke character. She goes from the ultimate then into her skills, and she goes crazy. One of the best DPSs in the game. The team doesn't work, in my opinion, without her too much. Like, I initially was trying to use Dongsu, and he's cool. I like Dongsu a lot, actually. But this team does not work without, because she is the team, right? Hansami does her support. Yeah, Wu Jinchul is large. Once the enemy is large, once the enemy's broken, unless they have multiple break gauges, Wu Jinchul is largely useless unless he's applying a stun or greed. He's largely useless, but that's the case for most breakers. But she is the team because you're just constantly cycling her back in and giving her bonuses and just using her ultimate and going. So she's really strong. Also, I believe her weapon was good too. Yeah, charges her power gauge. Oh, that's right. Yeah, so she starts off with the ultimate if you've got this weapon, and I think a certain dupe level. I'm not going to go through it, but she starts with the ultimate, and it's extremely strong. All right, now this is where it's unfortunate, but I have the water team at the bottom of the list. I know, I feel like I've been hating on the water team lately. I did a tier list, and I put Alicia in like A tier, but that wasn't because of Alicia's quality. It was more so just because you don't really need the water team right now. Alicia's super good still. She is super good, and she is this team largely also. Also, shout out to Mei Lin, because Mei Lin is one of the top 3 supports in the game too. And she's super good and not universal, but almost. She's got some stuff that's like specific, but really good as a support also for Jinu. The best team with this team is, you could argue it's for sure those two, right? These two. But you can argue it's the full original character team with Ana, because Ana can do that defense debuff, which is really strong with her. I guess if you like the poison, I believe she does poison too. You could argue that, yes, she's an original, and no, Sa here is not an original character. You could argue it's the other 3 that are the best team, but I personally like using Sa on this team. I like her. She does okay damage, especially when she starts going. She starts becoming a solid secondary DPS for this team. So that's typically what I like to do, but I can't undervalue the debuffs coming from Ana, who also is, again, a reliable breaker too. So it's kind of pick your own poison type thing. But again, the thing with this team, the reason why I have it mostly down here, I haven't talked much about the content these teams are used in, but you don't really need to use water in anything except for when it's a listed team in Power of Destruction, or like every now and again in the freaking timed mode. I forget what that one's called, power or whatever. But you don't have to go out of your way to use water, and that's the only problem. And that's largely because water was the best team in the game when they released. But the problem is that the game is 10 months old with early access, something like that, and they were the first team. so that's the problem. They made water and kind of moved on. So also, I forgot all about her. Namche Young, right? She used to be really fun. Her freezing and breaking is solid too. That's kind of the problem. Like, water was just, they kind of peaked early. So if water gets a new character, new supports, well, they don't need a new support. They don't really need anything. What water needs is to just be relevant again. That's all they like. And they could probably use a little bit of buffs just because they're old, but they just need relevance again. So if they get that, they can shoot up this. But that's part of the reason why Fire was the best team, is because they're most relevant right now in Deimos and stuff like that, and they're just super strong in general because power creep is a thing, right? I said there's 9-10 months in between these teams, and the Fire team just came out. Who knows? Maybe Goto's a water character. If he is, I don't know if he could be a water breaker or a water damage dealer. You don't want to kind of replace Alicia, right? But I don't know. So anyway, back to the Fire team. Shadows are kind of up to you. I personally, if I'm not using Choi anyway, because he can't crit, I personally like using Egress a lot with this team. You can maybe make an argument for like Kaisel, maybe, but I typically am going to use Egress, maybe Beru. That's about it. Big Rock is always going to be looming, but that's mostly what I'm going to do. Back to the water team. it's Tusk. There's not really any debate there because the core attack playstyle, it's Tusk. Over here, no debate here because the spamming on multiple characters, because Wu does a similar thing. It is it's Big Rock. It's not close. Like there's like no secondary. It's just Big Rock. Use it or lose it. It's Big Rock. I don't care about, you know, Egress. It's Big Rock. Big Rock actually is really good for this team too, because these guys either have low cooldowns or they can kind of spam their skills, whatever. So Big Rock is good here too, but I typically wind up using Egress for this team. That's mostly it. You could, again, another team where you can maybe make an argument if you want to use Kaisel. So there you go. But the real thing is you're not using most of the shadows. Like, I don't even care if a team like the Dark team, for example, is like what, full defense, and I'm still not gonna. You could maybe max out Iron or Tank, whichever one of those two scales defense, but I still would probably just not bother with that. It's just more or less, in my opinion, not the best investment. But maybe there's something new there since the armament system came out that I'm not thinking of. But for this team, yeah, I'm mostly using Egress. There's always Beru looming if you wanted to do that too. It's just, I don't know if getting 5% or whatever in crit damage is worth losing 3% on rate, because crit damage needs to be a big number typically, which is why I'm not at all recommending Serbi as a lead. And by the way, I'm not really talking much about the secondary shadows because I don't think the secondary shadows really change. No matter who your primary is, the secondaries are a combination of 2 of 3 characters. It's going to be 2 of 3, Beru, Tank. No, Beru, Iron. I always get them mixed up because Iron is a freaking tank. It's so annoying. Beru, Iron, and Serbi. 2 of those 3 characters. It's always those 2. And I typically don't use Beru. I typically use the other ones. Because the effects they're applying, right? So with this team, you could use Kaisel, you could use Egress, you could use Iron if you want to, because I believe they all scale off defense. I think Iron is the defense scaler. That's mostly it. Like, I'm not using anything else. Did I mention Kaisel? Yeah, Kaisel would be okay here because you can get the ultimate on demand. That's about it. I'm not really using much else. I think that's everyone, right? I'm pretty sure that's everyone. Yeah, so that's everything. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, it was fun to kind of rank and talk about the teams and the characters and stuff. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Like I said, remember, subscribe to the Raid Shadow Legends channel if you haven't already. Also, if you guys are interested in basketball content for whatever reason, not that you shouldn't be, but just in case, I have a daily content channel for there too called the Basketball Bulletin. You guys can check out. All right, guys, thank you so much for your support. I'll see you all later.